Trump's former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, is now setting up a legal defense fund because the legal bills pertaining to the investigation that he's facing, not just by special counsel Mueller, but also by the Pentagon, has become so expensive that he needs some help paying some of those bills. So his siblings, Joe Flynn and Barbara Redgate, say the costs have placed, quote, a tremendous financial burden on our brother Mike and his family and are becoming more than he can afford. And so when they set up the fund, they made it clear that they would not be receiving or accepting any donations from anonymous individuals or from foreign governments or foreign individuals, which is hilarious because the whole reason why Flynn is in this mess to begin with is that he worked for foreign countries, received foreign payments, and then failed to disclose those payments. The defense fund also indicates that the enormous expense of attorney's fees and other expenses far exceeded their ability to pay. To help ensure that he can defend himself, we have set up a legal defense fund, and we are asking Mike's supporters, veterans, and all people of goodwill to contribute whatever amount they can to this fund. So just to give you guys a little bit of a refresher in terms of why Michael Flynn is in so much trouble. So I went back and I looked at all the different issues with funds that he accepted from foreign governments. So first of all, he was paid more than $65,000 by companies connected to Russia in 2015 alone. And this was all part of a company that he owned known as Flynn Intel Group, Inc., along with his son, by the way, who is now also part of this investigation.
I mean, 65,000, just to interrupt. For Michael Flynn, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah, but there are bigger numbers coming.
You hear
that? I'm saying, and so keep listening.
So these are, by the way, these are all payments that he received but did not disclose. Right. So it's a big problem, especially when you go through confirmation hearings
when
and all that.
You perjure yourself by not doing that. That's
Absolutely.
Implicit perjury.
Well, and by the way, just what Anna's saying, it was such a big problem that they dumped Michael Flynn. This administration, they don't dump anybody for working the edges, if you want to be kind. No. So that they dumped him. Please continue. Yeah.
So he also received funds from a company tied to the Turkish government and wrote a pro-Erdogan, that's the leader of Turkey, pro-Erdogan piece in The Hill on election day. Now that was particularly amazing because early on, he was actually very critical of Erdogan and what's going on in Turkey right now. There are people who are arguing, hey, Turkey was much more secular. Erdogan comes in and he starts pushing for more, Islamist policies and extremist ideas. And so he was critical of Erdogan before, and then all of a sudden he starts receiving payments from the Turkish government or organizations tied to the Turkish government. And he writes this op-ed piece in The Hill saying like, oh no, we gotta protect Erdogan, he's great. Okay, we got to go after Gulen, who's a Turkish guy who's in the United States and is very much against Erdogan. And Turkey is trying to get Gulen into Turkey so they can make him face some consequences. Flynn also received $530,000 in similar lobbying work prior to the election that he did not disclose. This is lobbying work for other governments, not for the United States. He was also paid $45,000 to give a talk at an RT gala, that's Russia Today. He didn't disclose this payment when applying for security clearance, which again is something that you are supposed to do by law. So he broke all of these laws based on what we know so far. Obviously, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. And I find it so funny, especially if you think back to the RNC and this speech that he gave.
Lock her up, that's right. Yes, that's right, lock her up. I'm gonna tell you what, it's unbelievable, it's unbelievable. Lock her up, lock her up. You guys are good. Damn right. You're exactly right. There's nothing wrong with that. You know why we're saying that? We're saying that because if I, a guy who knows this business, if I did a tenth of what she did, I would be in jail today.
How about times 10? What would it be then?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, and the vitriol. That is what strikes me. In addition to it being manifestly untrue, right? He knows what the hell he's doing here. But I love that's a great setup. But the vitriol, that hate that we saw on the campaign trail. I mean, there it was. I mean, he just cranked the burner up to high.
Yeah, he did. He did, and it's in retrospect, I mean, obviously you watch that speech and it's just such a clear example of projection, to say lock her up when you yourself have received, you're a foreign agent. He had to register as a foreign agent, okay? You're receiving money from foreign governments and you are allowing that influence to, to change the way that you write your op-eds, to kind of influence American politics based on the money you're receiving from other countries.
Yeah, you're a bought and paid for opinion.
That's right. And that's an issue. And so, look, when I say he broke these laws, I should have said allegedly broke these laws, because again, he hasn't been convicted of anything yet. But based on what we know so far, it's not looking good for him.
No, it hasn't looked good for a while. And yeah, that was one of the most, I've seen a lot of convention speeches in my dull life. And I would have to say that was one of the most jarring speeches. I mean, we were there. Were you there?
No, I wasn't there. I was just watching.
And I just couldn't believe that speech when I heard it. And now I love watching it. I love watching it when these people are caught for being exactly who they are. And yeah, I think that something's going to happen where they're going to lock him up and we're going to play that, and it's just going to be a joy.
I mean, it's fraud, it's hypocrisy. Now the question of locking him up, he could make some kind of plea agreement, of course. I still think, wouldn't the president intercede to make sure that he doesn't actually get locked up?
Well, I mean, but you can't intercede until there's something upon which to intercede.
Right,
yes, presumably, but that you would presume too. It depends. Would the president intercede? Not if the way that Michael Flynn gets out of this is by talking about what the president did do and did know to Robert Mueller.
That's right.
So he might not be somebody that the president wants to intercede on behalf of, and I think that's a big part of it too.
And remember, Flynn had suggested that he would cooperate and that he would, disclose some details that investigators wanted to know if he was granted full immunity. They refused to give him full immunity, and so, obviously things are a little different as a result of that. But what I also find interesting is that he continues to plead the fifth. He refuses to testify. He refuses to give any statements and really cooperate with the investigation. So,
but Mueller has found ways around that by going to his businesses and going to his associates, and it's closing in on Michael Flynn.
He's got a trail of checks from foreign governments that alone would just absolutely encircle him and put him in real jeopardy legally.
Help us build independent media. Become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.